Welcome to the Tax Endgame with Mark Kanakaris from Cherokee Tax Group. As an advanced tax strategist and enrolled agent licensed by the Internal Revenue Service, Mark is uniquely qualified to go deeper into the revenue codes than most accountants. He understands and interprets the provisions on how you can legally save on your personal, trust, and estate taxes. Now you can reroute those wasted tax dollars. Mark provides business owners, professionals, and individuals the guidance they need to prepare their taxes today for better tax planning tomorrow. Using a solutions-driven and unique holistic approach, Mark breaks down the loopholes around tax planning and preparation along with must-know financial planning and tax reduction techniques. Listen in as we tell you what no one is going to tell you about taxes. Now, on to the show.
Don't make these common bonehead mistakes with your taxes. I'm Patrice Sikora with Mark Kanakaris of the Cherokee Tax Group. Mark, you've got the list. What's number one?
I would say the biggest mistake we see at the office, it is not filing on time. People just keep pushing it off. And next thing you know, they show up with 4 years of tax returns and they don't know where to start. And the bigger problem becomes they don't know where their documents are and what could possibly be missing. So today, let's talk about all these mistakes, things people do wrong, the boneheads mistakes they make, and how our folks will not make these mistakes. And by the time they're done today, they're going to have a lot more ammunition so that they can make sure, even if they're using a professional like myself, everything goes smoothly and accurately.
All right.
So not filing. Go ahead.
Take it from the top. I can't wait for some of these.
Well, people just think I'll just file when I get around to it. And what happens is that turns into multiple years. And every year we'll have a half a dozen folks come in with 6 or 7 years worth of taxes that need to be done. And I'm always astonished.
7 years? Wait a minute. They what do they think is going to happen? It's just going to get done.
I had a teacher come in with 11 years that needed to be done. 11.
Oh, my gosh.
And she was having divorce issues with her husband and child issues, and she just didn't do her taxes for whatever reason. And it's funny, we haven't seen her in 4 years.
What's the typical penalty?
Well, it could be as much as 25% for failure to file, plus whatever interest they add onto it. So it turns into a giant thing. Well, it depends if it's intentional tax evasion, of course. That could be 5 years, and so I think it's $30,000 still, and 5 years imprisonment per offense. But when you hold off not filing, you're making a bigger problem. And some of those years you could have gotten money back, but if you didn't do it in a fairly on time, you really are paying even more and you're losing more because. I think what happens is people go, oh, I think I'm going to owe. I don't have the money, whatever. I'll just wait and deal with it next year. Oh, I probably owe again. Oh, I'm going to have to give him my tax return back for the last year. And then it steamrolls. And then here's what happens. You walk into my office. All right, Mark, I'm working. I got some money. I can pay off the IRS. Here's my stuff. Do you have it all? I hope so. You probably don't. So first thing I've got to do is charge you money to call the IRS and get all your wage and income statements to see what you're missing. Because if I do your tax return with just what you give me, I'm sure I'm missing stuff. I've been doing this a while.
And now, wait a minute. Don't you have to call the IRS and say, listen, I've got a guy here who hasn't filed for 11 years? And
no, I don't bother. I just go and say I need wage. When I call in for it, I'll tell them, hey, the guy's filing his tax returns. I need the last 10 years of wage and income unmasked so I can see the EIN numbers for the previous employers who had filed so I can put all the correct information on the tax return. And of course, then, all I've got is what I like to call the hard documents, the W-2s, the 1099s, the interest statements, dividend statements. I'll have all that stuff. Any minor other deductions a client could have had, I've probably been lost because they turned a blind eye to it. And let's be honest, it's willing. Nobody said, don't you dare file your taxes. They did it on their own. I mean, hate to say it, but sometimes they are their own worst enemy. Because they think they owe and they turn a mountain into a molehill. I mean, a molehill into a mountain.
Either way.
Either way.
A lot of your people seem to disappear.
Well, when people are doing stuff wrong, they leave because I don't have time to deal with people who don't want to do their stuff wrong. And I'll say this. I laugh at people who come in and tell me, well, my old tax guy or gal, she just hide that number in my rental expense and I had to write it off. I'm like, you know what? You're just stupid. Because if you know the rules, you don't need to lie, cheat, and steal. You just got to use the rules. And anybody who laughs at their accountant cheating on a tax return, go somewhere else. I'm not going to deal with you. I mean, I know the rules, so I just use the rules in my favor. People are stepping over dollars to pick up nickels and dimes. I'm like, it's so stupid. It's almost embarrassing when somebody comes and they think they're being funny. I really call them out on it because it's just annoying after a while. But, choose an incorrect filing status, especially if you know the difference. It is definitely not good. If you're married by the end of the year. The only people who get to say they're married that aren't are widows. And it's for that calendar year. And it's unfortunate because the next calendar year, they get hit with what I call the death penalty, where now they're single. Mm-hmm. And they hopefully still have a lot of that income from their spouse, but they're single and they've jumped tax brackets. Just rough all the way around there. But when that happens for your spouse, it's tough to do tax planning because you're emotionally upset. And that's why working with a trusted tax planner can really save your buttons that you can lean on it and help you with some problems. You're just going to have to trust them because the IRS doesn't slow down because you've had a family tragedy. They don't care. I mean, they're people, they care, but the system doesn't care.
Right. What's next?
Oh gosh, I think a lot of people forget to include some of their forms. They forget to just record income and they think, well, it's most common with 1099s. And most people that have a W-2, almost everybody gets it by the end of the year. But I had people come in the other day, my own client, she said, I'm waiting on a 1099 for my insurance, for my investment company. So we called the IRS. We asked for a wage and income statement. And I'll claim what that is. Don't let me go on without explaining that to the folks. And we said, hey, my client's here. I need to pull wage and income. And he sent me all the files and they're blank. And I said, hey, bud, there's nothing here. And he said to me, oh, I guess we haven't updated our computers. I'm like, you're telling me that companies are sending you the data and you're not processing it into the computer? Yes. So when are you going to figure out if I'm missing a form? Probably next year. So this particular client rolled some money from one advisor to an incredible advisor. And she's supposed to get a 1099-R, and there's a code in there, and it just says this was a rollover. And she's expecting it from the company that it left from to send it to her, and they haven't sent it yet. So she's stuck. Now she can't attach the correct 1099. She doesn't have it. She'll probably have to file an extension. And the funny part is this form is not changing your tax return. But who wants to take the risk of submitting it knowing there's missing data, and they're going to come back and go, well, where's this form? Mm-hmm. So it's a mess. So she's the kind of person that should file an extension, which is I told her what we'll do is we'll call back in April. And if they don't have the form, we'll file an extension. We'll wait for the form to come in. And if it doesn't, when we submit your return, we're going to say, we're missing these forms. We've called the IRS and it's not going to change the return, but these are things that are going to come up. So don't call us when they do, because it's not going to change the return.
Are you mentioned, go ahead. You mentioned a form, a wage and income form?
So wage and income form. So if you came to me, Pat, and you said, Mark, I worked for the last 3 years, but for personal reasons, crazy life, whatever, I haven't filed my taxes and I've got a couple of W-2s. So I could call the IRS with the power of attorney and I can say, send me all of the documents that have been submitted to the IRS by her past employers and email it to me. And that's basically what happens through a secure portal. Of course, the IRS is not going to just email me your information. Then I can go back and say, okay, Pat, in 2017, you worked here and you worked here and you worked here and you had some interest at this bank and this dividend stocks and this. Oh, yeah. And then the next year will probably look a lot like it. And the next year look a lot like it. And if all of a sudden one of the years ago, wait a minute, this investment form, what happened? Oh, I had to put money down in my house. I sold that, the property. Okay, good. Now I can put a track together and I can get all your documents. At least I know what the IRS has received. Now, as far as deduction goes, like charitable contributions and such, you're going to have to give me that data. But at least if I submit your return and I'm missing one of those forms, they're going to come back and go, where's this form? Back to have all your forms ready the first time. And when it comes to having your forms, folks, do your accountant a favor. Don't show up till you have all your forms. All you're going to do is they're going to throw you in a pile and you're going to get you're just being overlooked because of just, we're all human. We're not perfect. We're human just like you guys. So I always tell folks, make sure that you have all your forms at the first time you go in, drop it all off. And don't forget, if you've got to have an identity PIN. We're hearing more and more about identity theft. And the IRS is giving PINs and they give you a letter every year. So please give that to your accountant. We don't know what the identity PIN number is. And it's okay to remind your taxpayer of some certain things. Hey, I have an identity PIN, or I don't have this issue, or I don't have that. We don't memorize your tax returns. We don't memorize our own tax returns. How we can memorize yours? So That's a really big one. Let's talk about, stimulus money. Gosh, how can we forget about stimulus? We're all happy to get it. First of all, everybody, it's not taxed. It was a tax credit, but the IRS is using your tax return to make sure that you received your money. So you have to tell your tax preparer if you got your money. Because if you tell me you got your money, or you tell me you didn't get it, and I put in there that you didn't get it, the IRS is going to figure it out before they issue your return. And if you're supposed to get $5,000 back, now you may get $3,800 back, and you're mad at me. And I'm going to turn around and say, well, you told me you got stimulus money. And obviously you did. You lied. Never good to lie to the IRS. Granted, everybody tries. But now you got a lower return. And it just hurts yourself and the repair, and it creates a bad attitude because you think we screwed up, and we didn't screw up. You just can't remember stimulus. And no, we don't have anywhere to go and look it up. There's not a database that we can go look up with your social security number and see if you got it. Not our responsibility. I know it sounds harsh, but it's not. It's just we don't have access to that data. People call us with stuff and go, well, you're my accountant. You're the only guy I thought to call. Doesn't mean I have the data. I don't know if you got stimulus. The IRS isn't going, oh, well, Mark is Pat's accountant. We should tell him that she got stimulus. That doesn't happen. But some good news from the pandemic. Those of you who had unemployment, a good portion of unemployment was waived for taxability, although there's no more unemployment going out for the COVID events. But for last year, you had $10,000 of COVID money, unemployment money that was not taxable, which is a great tax break. I was really shocked to see that.
When you come right down to it, though, Mark, $10,000 isn't that much.
No, it's about a couple $1,000s back in taxes for most people. It's really not much. A couple of things I think people forget about too is their charitable giving. Even though the charitable giving is really at this point, unless you're doing, well, let's talk about two different ways. One, if you're retired and you're giving money from your ride to a charity, which is the best way to give money to charities in retirement, bar none, people forget. But this year, really, all you can write off is $300. That's the only deduction you're going to get. It's really not much. I always say still give to the Lord and give the charities what the charities need and deserve, but you're not getting the tax credit you want. But don't forget at least the $300 that you gave, in cash or goods, to Goodwill or such, or cash to your church or favorite charity, because that's the only deduction you're going to get. One of the things I think people always pass up is listening to their tax preparer saying, here's what you need to be doing for next year. They ignore that really important advice. And sometimes we tell people, you can't do that. Like people try to add tax deductions and end up putting red flags. Like it's like claiming a home office deduction and then trying to write off mileage. That's a red flag. That's going to get you caught. And your preparer should be just as dumb for putting it on your tax return. But if you're going to TurboTax and you put mileage in a home office deduction, it don't work that way. You were setting yourself. Yes, some people legitimately have that, and everybody swears it's them, but really it's a smaller group than what most people realize. And they just get burned in the end. It's kind of disappointing, but it's just the way it is.
Does anybody ever try to claim their pets as a dependent?
I haven't seen it. I know that a lot of people have tried to. I know people are getting more into the service dogs. You're seeing them out there more and more, and they are a legitimate medical write-off if you have enough. So let's cover another thing that people think is a write-off, but sometimes isn't: long-term care. People go, oh, I got long-term care, I can write it off. I always say, maybe. You have to have so many deductions in the medical bucket to begin with to write that part off, but it gets added into that group. So one of the current tax laws, you're not writing them off at all. But when we go back to the old tax laws, once these Trump provisions end, it's possible some people, but I always say don't buy it, buy it for what it does first. The tax deductions are just a benefit because you're really just trying to save yourself from getting hammered if you go into a nursing home. And let's wrap up on end of tax season and filing an extension, some real bonehead mistakes and what people think is wrong with an extension. First, let me say this. An extension does not mean you don't owe the money and you don't have to pay it. And it does not mean you get to wait till you file your tax return to pay it. You still have to pay the money now. What the extension really means is I haven't got all my forms in. Just like my client who's waiting on a 1099 for a rollover, and we may have to file an extension for her, but luckily she's getting money back because she set herself up to make sure she gets a few dollars back, and she's going to have to wait on to file and get her return back. It's like $3,600. It's a nice chunk of change. But people think, I'll file an extension so I don't have to pay any interest and penalties. Whoever said that? Where did that come out from? That's not true at all. If you file an extension, all you really is saying is, I don't have my paperwork together. I'm still waiting on some documents to come in, but I'm pretty sure I've settled up with you. Mm-hmm. And you better not owe them any real money or they're going to come hammering down for you. And there's nowhere to go. You screwed up. But that's one of the biggest things I think people don't understand when it comes to following the extensions, that they think they're getting a pass and all that it's done under integrity. Like, no, it's not what it is at all. It just means maybe you had a bad employer that didn't realize you were supposed to send you a 1099 that you're still waiting on. Yes, I know we're all supposed to get our 1099s out by January, but trust me, not everybody does. I know.
All right, Mark, how can people reach you if they've got lots of questions? Even one question, how can they reach you?
Always, you can call the office 678-981-6331 or just email me Mark.K at CherokeeTaxGroup.com, and I'm more happy to answer a quick question for you. And to all of you guys out in Radio Land, we probably have some tax specials going on for new clients. So if you're looking for a new preparer and you like what I've had to say, come on down and tell them, even though I didn't get the coupon in the mail, what's the going rate? And we'll get it to you. We'll make sure we get you that discount and help keep you from making these bonehead mistakes.
And that is Mark Kanakaris of the Cherokee Tax Group. The Tax Endgame, this podcast, to know when new episodes are ready for you, follow it and share with friends and colleagues. It may improve your karma.
Yes, please share us with folks. Apparently it's been working and we've got some great feedback. So thank you to those who have shared us.
Excellent. We'll talk
soon. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Tax Endgame with Mark Kanakaris, the podcast that shows you how to win the tax game. Have questions about topics covered during the show? Visit www.CherokeeTaxGroup.com. Email us at info@CherokeeTaxGroup.com or email Mark directly at Mark.K at CherokeeTaxGroup.com. You can also call us at 678-981-6331 to set up a free consultation. Don't forget to click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the hosts and or guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Cherokee Tax Group. The content has been made available for information and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your individual situation.